Back in September, Zelda fans received the most welcome of surprises in the form of the Age of Calamity announcement. The announcement came at the end of a direct, with a message from Eiji Aonuma prefacing that Nintendo was hard at work on the sequel to Breath of the Wild, but it would still be a while. But worry not, because they have another way for us to explore the world of Hyrule in the meantime. As it turned out, it was another Hyrule Warriors game, taking place 100 years before the events of Breath of the Wild. And it would be here in just 2 months? Oh, Nintendo, you shouldn't have. In hindsight, the marriage of the hundreds of enemies on screen style of the Warriors games within the context of the catastrophe that Hyrule had to deal with in the backstory of Breath of the Wild is pretty genius. It opened the door for them to be able to flesh out the lore of Breath of the Wild in a manner that may not have been possible in the confines of a more traditional Zelda game. So how does it all net out? Let's take a look. Age of Calamity uses the typical musou type of gameplay and layers on some systems from Breath of the Wild in with it. So like in the Dynasty Warriors games, you take control of your choice of Zelda hero, and make hordes of monsters die by the fistful with relative ease. Each character learns a multitude of flashy combos, but because enemies tend to die so easily, learning these combos is really only something you would learn how to do for visual variety rather than something you need to do to survive. It still makes the game more interesting if you're seeing something different every now and then, so, I learned it. Something that is essential to your survival, however, is outpost control. If you let the enemy side take over the outposts controlled by your allies while you unproductively smack around monsters spawning in no man's land, you'll find yourself being overwhelmed. As previously mentioned, on top of the over-the-top musou-style gameplay, there are a few systems carried over from Breath of the Wild at play here. Flurry rushes make an appearance, for example. When capturing an outpost, there will typically be at least one monster that takes a bit more effort to kill. These monsters can be locked onto, and with a well-timed dodge, you can flurry rush them into submission. This melts their defenses and sets them up for a flashy-looking special move. The Sheikah Slate runes also get integrated into this game. The cool thing about them is that while every character might have access to them, they all utilize them in different ways. For example, when Link uses the ice block, he summons a pillar that can be used to either block a charging enemy, or used as a stepping stone into an aerial combo. If Urbosa uses an ice block, she will summon the block and then follow up by zapping it with a lightning bolt. Or if Rivali uses the stasis rune, for example, he'll freeze the surrounding enemies and then fire a massive arrow volley into the air, and then let the arrows rain down upon them. It's a cool bit of flavor that serves to make everyone feel unique from one another despite the general utility being the same. As far as the characters and their fighting styles go, most of them are a ton of fun. Link is a good introductory character. He has solid fundamentals with nothing too crazy to him. Impa's main focus is manipulating her seals and image clones to do a crazy amount of damage in a very short amount of time. If done right, you can essentially blink away large monster defense meters. Zelda might seem clunky at first glance, but that's just because of the way that she's animated to be more panicky because she isn't a fighter. But after playing with her for a little bit, it's pretty easy to get a handle on how her moves are supposed to flow together. Urbosa is fast and ferocious, with her main mechanic being focused on her lightning meter that enhances her strong attacks. This meter can either be filled up by taking a second to stand still and do it with the ZR button, or with a bit of timing you can push ZR at the end of a combo and she'll just instantly regenerate a section of the meter back. Urbosa's fighting style was probably my favorite, and the one that I got the most mileage out of next to Link. There were a couple of characters I didn't really jive with, such as Daruk or a few that become available later on, but I put that more on me not taking the time to figure out how to use them effectively, rather than them being outright flawed. The story of Age of Calamity is actually what had me the most interested in the game when it was announced. Breath of the Wild's version of Link and Zelda were my favorite incarnations of the two, and I thought that the champions were also pretty great, so having something to help fill out more of the picture that Breath of the Wild presented to me was a welcome addition. There's a lot of fun character moments that happen throughout the course of the game, whether it's Daruk sharing his food with Link in a rather comedic fashion, or Rivali's introduction being this cool fight with Link where they battle each other to a standstill before Zelda asks them both to stop. Everyone showcased gets a bunch of really cool moments. The story even managed to do a few things that surprised me. That being said, as much as I may have liked the moments in the game, I could certainly see an argument that they don't come together as a whole as well as they maybe should. Without getting too into the weeds, I'd say that it'd be pretty easy to think that you're going to get this really tragic portrayal of these events that happen to these characters that you like, and then come away feeling a little disappointed with how it all came together. As for my own opinion, I thought that the character moments were enough to carry me through, and I kind of liked the surprises that the story threw at me. So take away from that what you will. The fact that this game gets to use the Breath of the Wild art style is a clear advantage. It lets dozens of enemies appear on the screen without looking bad. I liked getting to see the environments from this version of Hyrule pre-Calamity as well. Having a visual reference to what all those ruined battlements and other structures looked like before disaster struck was quite pleasing to me. The music in this game nailed what it was going for as well. It trades in the ambient and quiet pieces of Breath of the Wild for some inspiring fight music. There are some true gems towards the end of the game. That's not to say that the game doesn't have its more introspective songs too. I think of all of the songs I heard in the game, the theme on the map will be the one that sticks with me the most. The one thing I do have to mention as points against this game though, there were a few instances where the game started chugging. Certain points towards the beginning of the game, and then usage of a particular character a little later seemed to cause the frame rate to drop here and there. This happened while I was playing undocked for whatever that's worth. Now I am by no means a performance junkie. Normally I don't care as long as my experience isn't being impeded upon, but I feel like if the game hit a point where even I noticed a dip in quality, then it's worth mentioning, brief as it may have been. I feel pretty confident in saying that I would give Age of Calamity my recommendation. It manages to capture the world and characters of Breath of the Wild in a manner that I found to be enjoyable throughout the time that I spent with it. If you are someone who is wildly anti-musou games, I doubt this would be the one to turn you around on them, but if you have an interest in The Legend of Zelda in general, or Breath of the Wild specifically, and are open to the idea of experiencing that world in a way that is different than what a typical Zelda game would provide, I say that you should check this one out.